Greetings, folks. It's a pleasure to see you. My name is Dustin Cormier. This is How to Rock Astrology. Today we are going to give a little reading for our two winners of our recent Astro Trivia. We had a astrology trivia just recently on Thursday. I'm going to start doing them some more. I'm going to try to do one this Saturday, and I'm going to try to get myself on the vertical mobile. It's a thing I'm trying to do. I don't know if it's going to work, but we're going to try it. So this is a little example of what you can win when you win the Astro Trivia. It's a little half an hour complete gumball glimpse of your chart. I tend to be it's hard to squish it into a half an hour, but that's what I'm challenging myself to do here. So we're going to begin with Amir, and then we're going to go with Lea S, who are our two winners this past Astro Trivia. Now, for those watching, if you want to be a part of this, all you have to do, I should have had this prepared, but I don't have it prepared. What you can do is, let's see here, you can go onto my channel, where there's my friend Corey. So you would go just underneath the banner, and you would see on the left you would see the word subscribe, and then on the right you would see the word join. It's the same thing on mobile as well. When you go on mobile, you can do the same thing. You go to my channel and you can join as a member. Now, for the first few, you might not need to join as a member. I want to stir this thing up. I want to make this a somewhat regular thing, at least maybe twice a month or something like that. We're going to see how that goes. Eventually, once we get a lot of people watching, it's going to be a membership-specific game. Membership is only $3. You support me, and you get to be a part of the future of my channel as it comes along and builds. So, on top of that, if you're interested, you can also go to dustincormier.com/subscribe and check out my new ebook called Thread. It's a psychedelic short story about a man living with dementia. I'm pretty proud of it. It is one of my real first works of literature. I did some fun things with it. And I got more books coming, including this coming year, 2026. So if you want to be informed of that, just go to dustincormier.com/subscribe. Check out my email list. So let's get started here. Our first winner today was somebody named Amir. Now let me just make sure that this is all clear here. Yeah. Okay. All right, Amir. So Amir will be watching this. And this is, I'm going to try to go for about a half an hour on this. That'll bring me into about 7 p.m. my time right now. So this is a cold reading, so I haven't read anything at all about Amir's chart. It looks like it's pretty close to the cusp. It's more than 20 minutes away, so it should be okay. Especially since this is a very specific birth time. We have 3:15 here. So let's get some brass tacks here. Venus is combust. And that's a bit tricky because the sun is the Atmakarika. Venus is at least in her own sign, in the sign of Taurus. Thankfully, that Mercury is doing wonderfully. And, wow. This is a very happy-chappy Mercury happening in this chart. It is not combusted by the sun. Mercury actually has the sun for a friend. So this is a nice thing for this Mercury. And Mercury is the chart ruler. And the chart ruler, Virgo rising. We also have Jupiter hanging out in the first house, which, of course, Jupiter being the great benefic is going to do great things for wherever the rising sign, or whatever sign Jupiter's sitting in. Now, Mercury has the sun for a friend. If Mercury is combusted by the sun, then that damages Mercury. But when Mercury is being in the same sign as the sun, but it's far enough away that it's not combust, it's actually delighted. So that means that this Mercury is delighted by the sun and by Venus, and it has Jupiter in Virgo, which is, of course, the chart ruler. Now, Jupiter, any planets falling in the Rashi signs, we call them, there's going to have Rashi aspects to it, which means this Jupiter's doing it's doing good for all of the mutable signs, Sagittarius, Pisces, and Gemini, and Virgo. Although Jupiter is starved in Virgo, it has Mercury for an enemy, so that's a little bit of a ding to Jupiter there. Jupiter is actually one planet that's getting really spanked in this chart. It's partly because it's starved by Mercury by being in Virgo. It's also trine to Mercury, and it's trine to a strong Venus in its own sign. Now, thankfully, it's also getting a trine from its friend the sun, but that's its only friendly delight. So it's nice that Mercury is doing well in this chart, but it sucks that Jupiter is being a little bit harmed. Now, Venus is being helped a lot by its friend Mercury and Saturn. Saturn's got an aspect to that Venus going on as well. There's an interesting yoga happening between the Sun and Mercury as the Atmakaraka and Darakaraka. The Sun is the Atmakaraka in this chart. That is definitely something very important here. And the Sun is getting pretty dinged by this Venus, unfortunately. So as usual, because this is a half an hour roundup, my intention here is just to scratch into the most important things happening in this chart. Overall, the Sun is the Atmakaraka, and it has some very strong Shadbala, which is very nice. Being in the 9th house is very nice. The 9th house is a lucky house for anything to be happening. Now, it's tricky that the Sun is combusting the sign ruler. The dignity of the Sun is probably, great enemy. Because Venus is already an enemy, which is a natural enemy to the Sun. So the Sun is in the sign of its natural enemy, Taurus. And it's also a temporary enemy. Because when any planet is with the sign lord in that sign lord's own sign, it's going to be a negative thing. So overall, the Sun's looking like it's got some good strength here, except not so much by dignity. Overall, the Shadbal is pretty strong for this Sun, so it's going to have some strength. This person has the heat, the masculine qualities, the drive to pursue their dharma as an intrinsic part of them because of Shadbala. We could remember, it's worth saying that, Shadbala, for everybody, is the overall strength and presence of a planet inside of a chart. If a planet has strong Shadbala, it is an underlying source, essence of capacity to, this person thinks about this planet. All the planets move through our minds. It's like, we all have voices in our head. And the voices that permeate the loudest, that seem to be the most urgent, are the voices that we end up acting on in a constant way. So the Sun, for this person, tends to be the planet that's coming through in the most consistent way. It's very good because the Sun is the Atmakaraka. That's a very positive thing going on there. So we can see the Sun is the Atmakaraka. It is the planet outside of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto that has the highest degrees in its sign. So for me, this is a good thing. Sorry, let me get back to here. Now we have the Sun Atmakaraka. For a Virgo rising, the Sun rules the 12th house. It's interesting that this person's born in 1992. It's close to my generation. So, yeah. This person has got the North Node with Uranus and Neptune and Capricorn. There's lots that can be said there about the, the conversation that I could have about Pluto's South Node being in Capricorn. And I almost want to. But for the sake of it, especially because this person is a Virgo, an earthy person, that theme is important to this person. It's especially important because it's worth us noting. Let's scratch into this a little bit. First of all, we have a Sun Atmakaraka person. So Sun really is the Atma. That's the natural Atma for everybody, but especially for someone who has the Sun for the Atmakaraka. So the Sun is important for everybody. It's doubly important for Amir. Now, whatever house the Atmakaraka rules is going to have an important signification. In this case, for Virgo rising, the Sun rules the 12th house. And you're in the generation with Chiron there, which means performing, coming out. This theme of coming into the Sun is going to be interacted with Chiron. Thankfully, you've got a pretty natural, strong Sun energy. So you might be a good performer who goes and does the actions that clears and clarifies your 12th house energy. This is how Virgo often serves in the world, is by doing things in the background, doing things that feel good, that feel devotional. There's usually an ethical, really, it's more of like a neurological piece. This is a Virgo rising who has a need to act in a way that redeems things that have happened, whether it's in your childhood or in your ancestry or just in your soul, to clean up the masculine dharma of the Sun. This is an incarnation where the person's ability to show up in the world, prove themselves, do their dharma, do what they want to do, and put consistent masculine energy into doing so is very important for them. I'm looking at the yogas here and the yoga power. Saturn has good yoga power. It's close to the 7th house. That's an awesome thing too. But sticking to my real Tropical Vedic dig here, it would be important and relevant to read about the 12th Lord. This is what would be called a Bhava Yoga. We take the 12th Lord, the Sun, and what is the 12th Lord like in the 9th house? It has some indications of being starved by Venus and Saturn, but it's ultimately doing pretty good in that 9th house. There'd be good indications and bad indications, but mostly pretty good. And that's what I would read about. Now, something I want to say before I go too far with that. It's worth noting for this person that something that we use in Tropical Vedic Astrology, it's a very important thing with a very important theme, is called the Swamsha. The Swamsha is where you take the position of the Atmakaraka. In this case, we have the Sun as the Atmakaraka. It's in the 7th Navamsha of an Earth sign. The 7th Navamsha of an Earth sign is always going to be Cancer. When we count the Navamshas, remember the Navamshas go in portions of 3 1/3 degrees. So 3 1/3, 6 2/3, 10. 13 1/3, 16 2/3, 20. 23 1/3, so you're in between 20 and 23 1/3. That's the 7th Navamsha. So you're going to count 7 from the cardinal sign of the element that the sun is falling into. And that will give you its Navamsha. Sweet little trick. I'm going to start teaching you guys that in the trivias and stuff like that, just because it's a fun thing to do. So if the sun is at the 7th Navamsha of an earth sign, we count up 7 from Capricorn. Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer. So we can see that the sun is in the Navamsha of Cancer. It's actually also it's also in the same Navamsha that Ketu is, which is even more interesting. This is a person with Ketu in Cancer, and it's in the first degrees of a cardinal sign. So Ketu is also in Cancer in the Navamsha, where the sun is. So that Cancer at 11th house is the Swamsha. This is a person with Ketu in their Swamsha. And there's some interesting significations there. You know, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Ketu in the Swamsha, there's actually, yeah. There are significations of that being a specific vibe. Ketu in the Swamsha indicates one who will earn through elephants, or maybe a thief or swindler. This may also indicate watch repairing or delicate machines or computers. So this is probably given from, let's see, this is usually Parashara. I know it looks like I just found this on Google, but this does come from classical jyotish texts about the Swamsha. And so this is something that's always interesting to look at. Parashara would say that the Ketu in the Swamsha, in this case we have the natal Ketu and the Navamsha Ketu, are in the same sign as the Swamsha, which is Cancer for this person. So it's earning through elephants, which is trucks and heavy vehicles, or maybe a thief or a swindler. This may also indicate watch repairing or delicate machines or computers. So you can take the thievery and the swindling for, with a grain of salt. That's one of those things where it's good to it shows that this person is somebody who is dealing with the difficulty of, Ketu can be a sapping life force sapping reality. Having Ketu in the Swamsha is a very mentally, intellectually raw type of consciousness. And this is why I can get into watchmaking and these little details and fine machinery and crafting. But what's most important is that the significations of a moksha type of consciousness. Being in the 11th house is interesting. The Yamakaraka sun in the sign of Cancer, where the south node is an interesting signification here. Something worth saying. What the heck? This is just how I flow, as an astrologer. This is where my brain is going on this cold reading. For you, Amir, it's worth considering if you're interested. I've done a video on something called Pluto's south node. So the south node of Pluto is, every planet has a south node, just like the moon's nodes. The moon has a north node and a south node. The nodes are this particular mathematical equation that takes a long time for each planet to go around. It takes the moon's nodes about 19 or so years, 18 and a half, to go around the zodiac. It takes Pluto is the slowest moving planet. So it takes Pluto's south node about 24,000 years to go around the zodiac. Now that gives Pluto's south node in its sign about a 2,000 year length of time in every sign. In our day and age, it is known that Pluto's south node has been in Capricorn. The moon's nodes are the only ones that go backwards. All the other planets actually go forward. It's because the moon is revolving around the Earth and not the sun. So Pluto's nodes actually move forward. Now, that means that before 600 AD, Pluto's south node was in Sagittarius for 2,000 years. This is when we had Lao Tzu. This is when we had Jesus. This is when we had the Buddha. This is when we had Patanjali. This is when we had the initial onset of many original Sanskrit scholars. After 0 AD, we had a lot of guys like Vara Mihira and guys talking and discussing Tropical Vedic Astrology for the first time. So this was a Sagittarian time, before 600 AD. Then in 600 AD, Pluto's south node came into Capricorn. And this is when we got the Prophet Muhammad, who created Islam, which is a much more of a military, industrial, social productivity. It's also in the Pluto's south node in Capricorn era that we've come into the modern era. It's not going to leave until about 2600 AD. So this is a time when things are Capricorn. This is a time of where the south node of Pluto is strongly situated at the root chakra, and that's to do with Saturn. So anyone with a good Saturn with significations related to Cancer and Capricorn is going to deal a lot better with this time. Although it's not until Saturn matures that this inner strength really comes through at its best. And it depends on all the chart. But you've got a pretty good Saturn happening in your chart. And that's a real blessing. Because you have the North Node and Uranus and Neptune in Capricorn. And you have a pretty happy Saturn. Saturn of a malefic likes to be in the 6th house. And it is pretty good. Let's see. The shad ball is pretty good on it. The chesta ball is not amazing. But the dig ball is strong and the sthana ball is strong. It has yoga power. And it is not too harmed from its enemies. Although it's got a bit of damage from the sun and moon. But it's also got help from Venus and Mercury from these very slight, almost trines. So Saturn's doing good in this chart. It's really going to help a lot with the North Node narrative. So you have a personal North Node that you're moving through. As well, the whole world is moving through the Saturn, Pluto, South Node, and Capricorn energy. Which means that Saturn is important for people like you and I who have I'm born in the same generation as you. I have North Node, Uranus, and Neptune in Capricorn. It's good to have a good Saturn in that generation. Thankfully, we do. So it's an important generation. And there's lessons related to monetary understanding. You might be somebody whose brain is very deeply, ecliptically knowledgeable about how money works in this world, how the banks and the governments of all countries run the banks, the elite conspiratorial lizards that are like, that a lot of people talk about, the Illuminati, all this kind of shit. People at this particular generation, really anybody with a lot of stuff going on in Capricorn or Cancer, are going to be aware of the way that the world is working in terms of its government policy, because that's a very Capricorn thing. And having a good Saturn will probably allow you to put your hand into the world and be a part of those mechanics. But it also might mean that you are somebody who has an inherent potential to understand and learn about investing, to learn how money works. You might be a guy who's like aware of the emerging understandings of things like crypto, although crypto can be kind of meh. I'm more of a guy who does asset allocation asset allocation ETFs. John Bogle. I'd get into that if I was you. Just look up John Bogle, and find about this. Like, these are ETFs that have like 8,000 different stocks diversified all over the planet. You can just put your money in there and it'll grow over time. These guys aren't paying me. It's something I've gotten really into ever since Pluto came into Aquarius, which is over top of my Saturn, just like your Saturn in Aquarius. So learn about money. That's the key point, because the root chakra is just as much a part of our spirituality as all the other chakras. And you might be somebody who transforms the world with regard to those root chakra issues, especially being a Virgo rising with a pretty good Mercury. You might be somebody who does well managing money, and management of money might be a key part of your reality. And having the 12th Lord in the 9th house, you might find that you're somebody for whom family is important, and who you might be interested in putting your masculine energy towards meaningful purposes in a relationship, in a family, and people all around you. The tricky thing about this whole dynamic for you is not the earthy side of it, because you've got some good things happening in the earth realm, at least in the earth signs. The tricky thing for you is that you are Cancer Swamsha, which means you have lessons to learn with regards to Cancer and the moon. And you have the South Node in Cancer. And the whole world has Pluto's North Node in Cancer, which means the whole world is putting pressure on the family unit. The whole world is kind of struggling with its heart chakra and with its Ajna chakra, with its deeper spiritual intentions, because it's got so much focus on Capricorn. You have your nodes opposite the Pluto's South Node and North Node, just like I do. You got the South Node in Cancer, which means K2 for you feels almost like it's mastered family. It's mastered a lot of emotional things. Being in the 11th house, at some level, it's probably going to become important for you to find a balance between an ambitious material life that probably involves emotions and spirituality, and possibly even traveling. It's the South Node in Cancer. Cancer is actually a little crab that brings its home wherever it goes. So you might find that you explore different cultures, cultural regions. And over time, you're probably going to want to be somebody who has ambition and who accepts the need to use money, to use people in your field, to contribute to your field, all 11th house stuff, to get gains, to get reputation, that allows you to have influence, that allows you to converse with people, that allows you to gain connections and networking connections, through which you can use some of your creative 5th house potentials. The creative 5th house potentials, you might be consistently creative in a way that's like you're constantly building on something. You're constantly building, getting debts out of the way. You probably have some kind of crafty skills through Saturn in the 6th house that you're constantly building on, that helps you to make a little bit of money, which you can then invest. And once you've invested your money over a long time, you develop the ability to put your money towards something that's going to help your field, contribute to your field and society. And all of this should, at some level, somewhere along the lines, be connected to family, is what I'm getting at here. The South Node in Cancer has a hard time dealing with its family childhood. It can be stuck in its childhood, and it kind of, especially with the North Node in the 5th house, there's probably a great desire to have children, to be creative with your children. And your children, if you have children, if you have a family, they will represent obstacles that are deeply karmic, soul karmic, especially with Uranus and Neptune there too. You learning to listen to your children and the children of generations and working creatively with other people is all going to break down generational traumas that you probably have inside of you. It's going to be painful but liberating ultimately because you got a good Saturn. I got a good feeling about that. Now, as you get into your 40s, dealing with your internal soul happiness, not just working hard through Saturn, but coming into your spiritual meaning, your inner happiness, your life that you want to build at an emotional level. Depends on the moon. The moon's doing okay in your chart too. It is your weakest Shadbala planet. Doesn't have great Sthana or Digbala or Ayanabala or Drigbala. So it's really kind of precarious in terms of Shadbala. Especially because because Jupiter and the Sun are... Jupiter and the Sun, these dharmic planets that relate to this inner dharma, this inner spirituality, it's probably good for you to consider the importance of your emotions. It's good for you to practice some contemplation, especially having Ketu on the Swamsha of Cancer. That's the thing, is that when you consider the fact that you have Cancer Swamsha, somewhere along the line, it's going to be important for you to deal with cancer. And I don't mean the disease, I mean the sign, obviously. So what I would do is look up Cancer Swamsha. Especially my favorite is the one by Star Oracles. Hopefully you can see me here. Yep. And what's it said about Cancer? And in Cancer Swamsha, fear from water. That's what Parashara tells us about the effects of the Karakamsha of Cancer. Water represents our emotions, so this speaks to Cancer's tendency to suffer from unfulfilled emotional needs. This can be a highly sensitive person, somebody who is almost too sensitive to feel confident and natural about being a person who can be happy emotionally and with other people. You might feel you're so sensitive that you're overly sensitive. You try to control your own emotions and the emotions of your partner and the people around you. And you might work very hard in your Saturn world in order to bring yourself up. And Cancer and the moon is something that you're so sensitive to. You need to balance these two by working hard and by also living a rich internal emotional life. And because Cancer is your Swamsha, you can't get away from this. It's painful, but the Sun is strong enough in your chart. The moon is doing okay in your chart. You might want to do perhaps some kind of emotional therapy, co-regulation, tantric stuff that will serve you well, because I don't worry for what you've got going on in the world of Saturn. Even though Pluto is in Aquarius right now, it's in the sign of your Saturn. So I'd definitely pay attention and be aware of the fact that you are going to go through a transformation of how you think about money, how you deal with money, how you deal with your root chakra. And this is going to interact with your ability to think of like, can I work on my emotions? Can I work on my love life right now? I can't because I don't have any money. But you'd be surprised how much your material intelligence and root chakra balances itself out when you take breaks, when you listen to your soul, when you contemplate, when you quiet your restless gerbil wheel of survival and listen to what your soul's desires are. That's something I would highly recommend, because this is a huge theme in this chart, is the Cancer-Capricorn axis. Probably the biggest theme that I could point to in this reading. So I hope this was cool for you, Amir. I hope that this gave you some things to think about. Let me know in the comments, or you can email me, and if you want to know more about this, or anything going on, any questions about your chart, we can do another cold reading. I charge $1 per minute, so that's $60 for 60 minutes for a full hour. You can ask me any questions. I'm happy to discuss your chart. It's a powerful one. I feel good about it, and I hope that this reading was good for you. let me know either in the comments or in an email, or just, don't feel obliged. Congratulations for getting the free reading, my friend. Cool. That was fun. Wow. This is cool. I feel good about the half an hour thing. You can really dive deep. Gives enough of a wink at where a person's chart in life might be taking them. That felt cool. So this has been for Amir, and for anybody who's interested, if you want to see more of what I've got going on, check out my new ebook thread by joining my email list, dustincormier.com/subscribe. Or you can just pay attention to my channel. As well, you can join the memberships on my channel, and you'll be able to do more of these You'll be able to do these Astro Trivias so that you can have a reading just like we saw with Amir today. Now we got one more reading to do. This is going to be for my friend Lea S. Lea was the second winner of our Astro Trivia just the other day, whatever it was. So Lea is contestant number 2. Congratulations to Amir. Thanks for volunteering your chart. Now here we have Lea. Now I believe last time when I worked with Lea, her chart is a little bit cuspy. 10, 20. Ooh, it's not too bad. It would be about 17 minutes. Okay, now I gotta make sure I got the right time here. Yeah. Leah's 2:50 p.m. April 10th, 1989. Yeah, so I believe that I did a reading for Lea recently. It would have been, well, I don't know when it would have been. She said it was in the winter. So for Lea, I'm going to try to focus a little bit more on things that I probably would not have talked about when I was doing her original reading. So I'm probably going to focus on Mahadashas, transits, particularly the transit of Saturn. The current eclipse is happening. Going to go a little bit deeper on the present moment if I can help it. But before I do, it's always good to crack a little bit into the guts of the chart. So Lea is a Leo rising. Lea the Leo. This is a cold reading, so I just want to digest the whole chart. Every time I look at a new chart, I've got to eat a piece of ginger, reset the palate, get ready for another piece of sushi. They say ginger, you don't eat it for the flavor, you eat it to reset your mouth, to cleanse your palate. That's what I'm trying to do right now. Looks like we have Venus and Mercury are combust. We have Mercury at Makaraka. Mercury is in the 9th house. Mercury, Venus, and Sun are all hanging out there in the 9th house. Mercury, the Atmakaraka, is in the Swamsha of Sagittarius. So again, I'm going to start teaching you guys this just so we can have fun doing it so you can see it. When you have the Atmakaraka, whichever... Okay, so again, in the Navamsha, when you want to know what Navamsha, because remember the Navamsha chart's like the bloom, it's the flower, it's the soul of the chart in a lot of ways. It's a secondary chart that is created. It's called one of the Vargas, which some say we also call them the divisional charts. It's created kind of in the same way that decanates are, except, like the first 10 degrees is a decanate, then the second 10 degrees is a decanate, except you're going to take the planet in that amsha, as we call it, a portion, and put it in a whole other chart, depending on how big the portion is. In the Navamsha chart, we split the 30 degrees of every sign into 9 pieces. 3 degrees and a third, 3 degrees and a third, 3 degrees and a third. So for this Mercury, in this chart is in the 9th Navamsha, right? You would count 320, 640, 10, 1320, 1640, 20, 2320, 2640, and then 30. So 2640, between 2640 and 30 degrees is the last Navamsha, the 9th Navamsha. So what is the 9th sign of this element from the cardinal sign of this element? Of course, it's Aries anyway. So what's the 9th from Aries is Sagittarius. So here we have Mercury in the Navamsha of Sagittarius. So we have Mercury out Makaraka, Sagittarius Swamsha. Now, Lea is born 1989, so she's not going to have Pluto in Sagittarius. It's interesting, the Gen Zs all have Pluto in Sagittarius. But Lea is in my generation, and she has Pluto in Scorpio. Now, what we just talked about with Amir is interesting. You know, Lea can probably relate to it a little bit because she has Saturn opposite Chiron in the Capricorn Cancer axis, and she has Uranus, Neptune, and Saturn in Capricorn in the 6th house. So there is definitely a signification of more of what we've talked about. Again, anybody that has any significations relevant to Capricorn and Cancer are dealing with this theme. Now I'll just quickly, smash it in here again just in case Lea missed it with, Lea is not obliged to watch my reading for Amir. So Lea, I just talked about the same thing with Amir. Pluto's south node is something that evolutionary astrology talks about. This is something that comes from Jeffrey Wolf Green. He is a really interesting, wild, psychedelic evolutionary astrologer who lived in the 60s, 70s. He was born in, I can't say when, but he was in his 20s or 30s, I think, around the 60s and 70s. Wild guy, and he talked a lot about Pluto. And one of the things he talked about was Pluto's south node. Now, the moon has a south node, which goes backwards because the moon is going around the Earth. But all the other planets, they orbit around the sun. So their nodes are actually moving forward. The moon's is the quickest. It takes 19 years for the moon's nodes to go around. 18 and a half to 19 years. Pluto's south node, because Pluto's the furthest planet from the sun, it takes the longest to go around the sun, which means its nodes take about 24 to 26,000 years to go around the zodiac. That adds up to about 2,000 years for Pluto's south node goes in its sign for about 2,000 years before it goes to the next sign. Now, before 600 AD, Pluto's south node was in Sagittarius, the philosopher's sign, which is interesting because that shows that you might have soul ties to that time, that philosophical time. When Pluto's south node was moving through Sagittarius, it was probably about like 1600 AD, 1600 BC to 600 AD, around there. So you might have soul ties to some of the great ancient philosophers like Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, the beginning of society, the beginning of writing and literature. This is the time when Jesus was alive. This is the time when Buddha was alive, when Lao Tzu was alive, when the creation of Tropical Vedic astrology. Tropical astrology, as we know it, was around 0 AD to 500 AD, around there. It was a very philosophical time. Then around 600 AD, Pluto's south node came out of Sagittarius and moved into Capricorn. It was Pluto's south node in Capricorn that this is when the Islamic prophet Muhammad came about, which is a very different military, government, institutional infrastructure, social and societal infrastructure done with a whip, with religious overtones about people having religious autocracy coming from the top to the bottom in society. You know, everything from how a village inn runs is moving through Mohammedan religious and socio-structural infrastructure. So Capricorn is a very different energy from Sagittarius. So Pluto's south node is in Capricorn right now. The whole world has been operating under this tone, which is very Capricorn. It's everyone's working on the root chakra right now. The age of Aquarius proper isn't going to happen until 2600 when Pluto's south node moves into Aquarius. But even then, you know, just like with the moon's nodes, when Pluto's south node is focusing on a certain spot, it is moving through some kind of overemphasis on something. And there is a need for anyone who's got a lot of karma in Capricorn or Cancer for their individual karma to be interwoven in the narrative of the collective evolutionary karma. In your case, being somebody who has Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune in Capricorn, and that Chiron, interestingly, pretty well opposite those three planets, you are somebody who is involved with this. And it is important for you to develop through a Chironian shame with regards to your emotions. You know, anyone with Cancer, they say they have a fear of water. Everyone in today's time has Pluto's north node. Pluto's Rahu. Pluto's north node is in Cancer, which means the whole world is trying to move through healing, through the heart chakra, through sort of spirituality proper, because that's really what the moon is. The moon is the Jivatman. The moon cares. The moon is real. The moon does what the moon has to do. It's emotional survival, animal instincts, primal needs that a baby, you know, just like a baby saying, I need that thing. You know, that's how we know that a baby's hungry. You know, so you are somebody who has probably brilliant, you know, Uranus, Neptune, and Saturn here in Capricorn probably has some brilliant X-ray vision of the conspiratorial movements of money, how money works, how the world's infrastructure of the root chakra, of finances, of political corruption, stuff that goes systemic from your village and town up to the nation. You might be somebody who sees through and beyond those things and might even be compelled to work with those things in some way. It's also because you have planets, you have the north and south node in Virgo and Pisces. And this brings a little bit more of this earth karma dimension to your astrology chart. Now, it's interesting, really, you know, I like talking about that Pluto south node thing. What it really says is that, you know, it's good for you to develop healing with regards to the heart chakra in Cancer, the moon. But it's also good for you not to be one of these spiritual people who sublimate and don't work out their financial needs. You might be somebody who talks with the community about how the world is corrupt and the way it moves through money and these kinds of things. But Saturn, even in a time where Pluto's south node is moving through Capricorn, money is super fucked up in today's time, Saturn, which rules money in the root chakra, is an eternal divine principle. So don't neglect Saturn. Money's a part of that. So don't think of money as something that's intrinsically evil. If you are having trouble with finances, if you're having trouble with, you know, something that you should do is try to get the most solid job that you can and learn about how to save your money. And by saving your money, you can even invest it and learn about investment. You know, the best way, in my opinion, just what I've gone through my own learning, is to develop a well-diversified portfolio, particularly through ETFs that have this wide range. It's hard to know what a good thing to invest in anymore because of the way the American economy has been the center of the world for so long. It's probably because the American government was built with Pluto in Capricorn. So America has karma with this Pluto South Node in Capricorn energy. The South Node of Capricorn, Pluto South Node in Capricorn for the whole world. America is born with Pluto in its own South Node placement, which is Capricorn. So America is always going to go through these seismic shifts. And it's kind of going through one of those right now, especially since, when Pluto went through Capricorn recently. So it's hard to know what to invest in and how things are changing. But it's people like you who have this karma who can understand it, wield it, and possibly even make some good, positive social development on it. Don't throw it away completely. Learn how to maneuver it. And I think the best way to do it is through, again, large diversification ETFs. If you're interested, look up John Bogle, the guy who does Vanguard. It was a huge revolution that he did where it's a kind of a set it and forget it. It's called the couch potato method, where you're not like watching stocks like, oh, my Microsoft stock went up. Instead of buying the needle in the haystack, you buy the whole haystack of a whole 9,000 worth of stocks and ETFs all in one ETF. If you want, you can email me. I can just show you the specific information that I'm talking about if you're interested. But I don't want to talk all day about it. But it's a wink I always give to anyone with Capricorn karma, specifically in our generation from about 1988 till about 1990, the end of 1992, even 1993. That's when the rooster came along and Saturn came into Pisces. I digress. Now, to squeeze out what I still see being important in this chart, I wonder if I talked about all this shit already for you. I don't feel like I did, but that's okay. Either way. You have South Node in Virgo. Oh, yeah, so you're probably turning about 1989. You'll be 36 in 2026. So you're about 35, 36. Your Saturn is maturing, and your North Node is meeting up with its natal North Node pretty soon. That being the case, at age 36, we all go through a very important time, and it's when Saturn matures and your North Node really starts to open up and wake up. So we all operate very unconsciously from our South Node, but in an unconscious way. So for you, you've been very Virgo. Virgo it's interesting because that's your Amakarika. So you've probably been working through your own inherent true nature, but it hasn't been working for you as best as it can. There are blockages to your understanding how to make the best use of your own original nature. You have a nature that's inside you that you're aware of, that comes through you, that works. You're very used to using it. It's a key part of you. Now, for you, much of the energy that you're already moving through, it's probably easy. It's almost like you can hate yourself. Like you're so close to your own bones, your own nature. It's Virgo. It's second house. It's materialistic. It's a money intelligent person. It manages time effectively, and it does so in order to create capital, in order that it can manage money and time and friends in a less than fun, more dry way. It will sacrifice his time spent with friends in order to develop material progression, soul career interests. More of the career interests, having the money and resources strategized in order to get you farther in life. The North Node going through Pisces right now is going to put pressure on you to realize how, especially right now, the date is August. We're already a month away, less than a month away, from an important lunar eclipse that's going to be happening for everybody, but especially for you, my dear. Let's go to it. Let's go Astro Dienst. I almost feel like I should have jumped into this sooner. No, that's not what I'm looking for. Astro So here is our today's chart. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. It's around this time. I think we went too far there. Yeah, so it's around, yeah, that's it. So September 7th, for everybody watching, this is good for everybody to recognize. So let's go 7 days back. There's going to be a new moon right at the beginning of Virgo, around August 23rd, 24th. And then 14 days later, there's a full moon in Pisces on September 7th, especially because it's a lunar eclipse. That full moon in Pisces, the month leading up to it and then the month coming out of it, but especially 2 weeks coming in and out of it, is going to be a time that is going to be teaching you a very important lesson about your internal happiness. And this is a time where you might have to surrender, listen within, and specifically, Virgo is constantly building on Virgo. That's what I do mean Virgo. Virgo is constantly building on things that allow it to not work as hard. But it still likes to work. It's managing how it works. Pisces is constantly building on things so that its soul enjoyment is always close at hand. Virgo works away and Pisces takes a vacation. Pisces is the ocean. Pisces is an emotional, heartfelt sign that brings us back in touch with why we work so hard. We're all at this bonfire, you dig, and we're all going and collecting sticks, and then we throw the sticks in the bonfire so we can put our hands up and feel the heat and enjoy the human experience, this subjective experience. What am I here for? Am I here just to work hard so I can show up and be well respected by all my friends and my loved ones? You know, this is... Mercury likes to find these in balance. Mercury's a poet. Mercury likes to be an entrepreneurial person, especially Mercury out Makarica for Leo rising. It's an entrepreneurial person, you know, especially because you got this big stellium happening in Gemini, and you're a Mercury out Makarica. Gemini, the playfulness, you know, having a career that makes you an ambitious person, all these 3 planets in the 11th house, which is really worth talking about, but I probably talked about it last time, so I wanted to focus on the transit right now. Pisces, right now, coming up to age 36, the North Node, especially the lunar eclipse in Pisces, but this whole year in general, is teaching you how important it is to remember to build emotional anchors. Anchors to the subjective experience that injects joy and light and fun into your workaday life, into your busybody life and world experience. And Pluto's moving through Aquarius for everybody. You don't have any planets there, so you probably are, if anything, you're probably feeling pretty relieved that Pluto is now out of Capricorn. It's, you know, there's probably a lot you learned about money, finances, the world. You probably went through a lot of ugly generational trauma gunk, ancestral gunk. You probably went through a lot of crap from about 2009 till about like 2023. You're through that, but you still gotta be patient with yourself, nurture yourself, use the moon, ask for what you need, listen to what your needs are. You know, truth be told, it's a pretty happy thing to have moon with Mars and Jupiter. Mars is a malefic, which is kind of burning these two, but Jupiter is delighting everything here. And Jupiter has Mars and the moon for its friends. So this is a pretty delighted Jupiter, pretty happy Mars, pretty delighted moon. Those three are having a pretty good time here, especially the moon. It is delighted by Mercury in the sign of Gemini. Mars isn't as happy in Gemini, and neither is Jupiter. But they are delighting each other. All in that 11th house, there's a lot of aspects of your life that's giving you positive luck and delight and enjoyment in the world of entrepreneurship and ambition and being, using your networking skills, your communication, even your fun. Being a fun and intelligent mercurial person is probably helping your job. The fact that the sun is combusting Mercury doesn't help, but even Venus is delighting that Mercury. Pretty good setup overall. Saturn is more harmed than anything in this chart. What's happening here? Yeah, the moon is at an aspect to Saturn. Mars is hitting Saturn with its 8th house aspect. And even the sun has got we could call it a Western square. Vedic astrology typically abides by trines for the sun. But the sun is an enemy to Saturn. And it's not a complete trine, it's sort of a wider trine, but it's still hitting Saturn here. So overall, Saturn's mostly getting hit by Mars's 8th house aspect. So this is a Saturn that has to account for its own rest, has to take care of itself, not even at an emotional level, but being hard about your boundaries. You've got a chart that pushes you harder than it probably needs to and actually drains you in a way. At the age of 36, as the nodes come into focus, as the North Node begins to become active, you're coming out of your unconscious use of Mercury, and you're going to learn how to use the joy of Pisces and the North Node and Jupiter to inject a spirit, an intelligence, a soul mysticism, an intuition into your workaday world. Doing little vacations with Pisces, having people, loved ones who are close to you, you have to build these things. You have to actually build on Pisces. And because the North Node is there, you're so wrapped up in Virgo in the 2nd house that the North Node in Pisces in the 8th house is kind of forcing you, especially with the lunar eclipse on September 7th, to recognize how you can invest emotionally in people and friends and with other people. And it might even feel painful. It might even feel like you're losing a piece of yourself by investing emotionally in other people. But this is how Rahu works. Remember what I always like to say. If you want to know the truth about astrology, the simple fact is that whenever you see any karma in any of these signs, any of these houses, any planets anywhere, the simple truth is that all of these houses, these signs, they're not a big deal. It's only when we have karma there that we experience it to be a big deal. Investing emotionally in Pisces, for a Leo, any emotional investment they make is also going to be a romantic one, relating to Sagittarius, your 5th house, which is your Swamsha. It's a nice thing that you've got Jupiter delighted by Mars and the moon here. I just want to check for the yoga capacity of Jupiter here. It's not too bad. So that's kind of nice. So Jupiter has some support that it needs here. Let me just quickly check the Shadbala on that too. Mercury's the one with the tough Shadbala. And I would have talked with you about that in the last time. Jupiter has the strongest Shadbala, which is nice. It's good for your Swamsha, good for your North Node in Pisces. That Mercury probably is not as... It's probably tough for this Mercury to really be constantly thinking intelligently about how to manage its mercurial life. But Jupiter has luck. You do think about your emotions, and especially I think that you're a woman if I remember correctly. But in any case, using the feminine side of your psyche to ground yourself and remember the importance of having fun, having joy in your life. The joy that you experience is rational, it's practical, it's pragmatic, it's functional, and it will bring you extra neurological energy with which to deal effectively with the intelligence that you need to apply to the material things in your life that you're trying to manage through Mercury. The North Node, especially this coming the full moon in Pisces, is going to make you feel this. It's at a feeling level. So keep your ears open for that Piscean energy on September 7th. It's already started, and it's already going to be moving through some shit for you. I think that the North Node and South Node are in this axis at least until it's just going to get out of here. So it's around August, September of 2026 that the North Node leaves Pisces and comes into Aquarius. So this theme of the North Node in Pisces teaching you to get out of the stuck ways of your Virgo and move into a new Rahu. You're entering the jungle of Rahu, of Pisces, of the 8th house, of interacting with others, not just managing your own resources, but being intelligent about how you combine resources with other people, lovers, business partners, etc. And it's going to take a good Saturn to do well with that, because this is the thing, is that Saturn matures at 36, and then however our Saturn is, gives us a grip that allows us to come out of ourselves, because it's a very painful thing to leave your comfort zone and go into Rahu. That's what this time is teaching you. You're coming out of your comfort zone, coming into Rahu, which means you need a good Saturn. You need to learn how to rest. You need to learn how to manage your root chakra, to feel comfortable, to not feel urgent, to listen to your nervous system, have times of rest, relaxation, even eating good food, having a good diet, coming into an understanding and awareness of the natural regulation of your sex drive, your animal instincts. All this stuff is very Saturnian things. Give yourself the time to listen to the animal inside you through Saturn in the root chakra. This is going to help you to stabilize your nervous system so you can take on getting out of your comfort zone by going into the darkness of Rahu. It's an important thing at age 36. I feel pretty good about that. I hope that some of this clicks with you, Lea. Let me know. You can either let me know in the comments or you can send me an email. And of course, you can also email me at any time. And so can anybody else who is interested in me doing what I just did for Amir and Lea today. You can email me at astrology@dustincormier.com. And I'd be happy to do this reading for you. If you want a full reading, I usually I charge $200 for a 2 to 3 hour reading. I really go deep. But I can also do cold readings like I just did, and it's $60 for a cold reading. Or you can check me out on one of the Astro Trivia days that we do. I try to do them twice a month. As well, if anybody's interested, check me out at dustincormier.com/subscribe, where you can get my free ebook thread, and you can be aware when I put out some books and do anything else that I got going on. Thank you, Lea, for volunteering to have this reading done, and for being a part of our Astro Trivia. I hope that you enjoyed it. For everybody watching, if you enjoyed this, stay in touch with me. Let me know in the comments. I'm Dustin Cormier. This is How to Rock Astrology. See you guys on the next Astro Trivia. I'm going to try to do another one on Saturday. Hopefully I can get this thing spinning. I'm going to try to do it in different ways. I'll see you there if you feel like joining. Thanks for watching, folks.